Just give me a second here. Alright. Hi again, it's Alex. I'm in my car, just finished work, got a nice long weekend ahead. But I wanted to talk about something a little more serious today. On Wednesday, May 14th, 2014, the Toronto Sun published this article. It's an editorial opinion piece by, let me just check here, it's by Eric Duhaime, I believe, from the Toronto Sun. So, it's called Let's Talk About Sex, and it's his opinion on some of the legal changes that are going into effect, or that people are talking about bringing into effect, that deal with transgender people. And this is something that is really important to me. I am actually in the media. I work for a publishing company, and I do journalism and sales writing and stuff like that. And I'm slowly working up to, to a higher level position. And I find it really awful how uneducated reporters are about these sensitive issues. I have to write about things that I don't understand a lot, and you would be surprised about how often reporters and writers have to just write about they get assignments that don't really have any special interest or relevance to them personally, but they have to learn about them and write something that can inform others. But it seems like so many of the reporters and journalists that cover transgender issues don't do the research, or they do research on things that other people, like other reporters and journalists who aren't transgender as well, have said in the past, and it's just more perpetuating these lies and misunderstandings. I want to read this article, the Let's Talk About Sex, and then I'm going to talk about what's wrong with it. And I'm hoping that I can share this with some people, and maybe it'll get the truth out there about why these changes are so important to the trans community. Okay, so it starts, are you a man or a woman? This basic question may be forbidden in the public space if we leave it to our advocates of political correctness. The Quebec government is currently being sued by a group of transgender activists. Some people who decide to change sex consider it discriminatory that they have to wait until after their surgery before the government recognizes their new reality. Last month, an Alberta court ruled in favor of a young transgender woman who wanted to change her sex on official papers. Manitoba recently tabled a bill that would legally recognize the simple recommendation of a physician to change gender. In a 2012 decision, the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal considered it discriminatory, in quotations, to require surgery before acknowledging a sex change. The federal Liberals proposed to add a third sex on our IDs at their party convention in February. Transgender activists also want to make sure we do not have to write down the sex of a baby on any birth certificate. The mother of a transgender 6-year-old tabled a complaint at the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. She wants parents to be able to leave an empty space next to sex on documents for newborns, as Germany allows now. Vancouver lawyer Barbara Findlay is also trying to abolish sex identification on our passports, like Australia has been doing since 2011, and New Zealand since 2013. Are we going way too far, way too quickly, without a social debate on this issue? Are politicians trying to drop the hot potato into the courtroom so they don't need to take a courageous stand? When I asked the Centre for Gender Advocacy, affiliated with Concordia University in Montreal, how many people are affected by such a question, I did not get the beginning of an answer. I am sorry, but writing or saying you are a man or a woman is not in itself a discriminatory statement. It is a neutral observation and an affirmation of your true nature. I understand the trauma of a human being who feels Mother Nature gave him or her the wrong sex. I know hermaphrodites exist. We just have no clue to the extent of such a situation. Why is there such a rush to suddenly turn everything upside down? Our societies have thousands of years of tradition that cannot be erased with the snap of a finger. It would easily, or could easily, become a slippery slope, leading, for example, to eliminating the separation of competing athletes by gender at the Olympics. Ladies, you can forget about medals in almost all major sports. What about bathrooms? Will we need a third room for the third sex in every restaurant or public facility? And the list of things that would change in the near future could go on and on. It's a very complex debate where it is easy to be prejudiced against transgenders. It is a discussion that needs to be held in a very respectful and open-minded environment outside of the courtrooms involving more than activists and lawyers. Okay, to start off, I'm not a fan of the writer's tone throughout the article. For example, when he put in air quotes, discriminatory, to require surgery before acknowledging a sex change. Are we going way too far, way too quickly? That sort of thing. And transgender activists also want to make sure we don't have to write down the sex of a baby on a birth certificate. Now, it seems to me, by the way that he's writing about this, that he thinks that transgender activists are just taking personal offense to the use of sex, labeling sex and plastering the birth sex of a transgender person all over their paperwork because they have some sort of a negative reaction to it, or they're just being overly sensitive and getting easily offended by this. But that's not why it's so important that these things go into practice. Getting rid of the sex or gender marker, sex marker, on driver's licenses, passports, almost all paperwork, official paperwork, I think is crucial for the transgender community because most trans people, especially those who are on hormones, they already pass in society before they get a sex reassignment surgery. Sex reassignment surgery isn't the end-all be-all of a transsexual's transition. And to say that in order to get your paperwork changed over, you need to have a surgery, it's unrealistic. A lot of transgender people don't have surgery. And if a year down the road after I've been on hormones for 6 months or even a year, if I get stopped by the police and they see an F on my driver's license, they're going to look at me, think that I've committed fraud or stolen someone's identity. It's ridiculous. The only place, I think, for a gender marker or a sex marker on official documents should be on a health card, because that is the only place where it makes a difference. Otherwise, no one needs to know your sex on documentation. They can look at you and make their judgment, and they can, follow your wishes. Having that sex stated on your driver's license, what difference does it make? Bathrooms. Most trans people have issues using public washrooms because either they don't pass, so they can't use their true gender or target gender washroom. Or they do pass, but they are living somewhere where it's illegal for them to use their true gender washroom. Can you imagine some trans guy going into a ladies' washroom with a beard and, you know, a low voice? I mean, he could get arrested. They don't seem to understand that. So maybe the best thing would just be to make use of single stall washrooms, not a third gender washroom, but just have one single stall washroom that anyone can use, regardless of whether they're male or female, or, you know, it's good to have that privacy. And, you know, why not? It doesn't cost that much more, I'm sure, for a business to just run a little bit of extra pipe work, or I don't know much about plumbing. And as for this, leading to elimination of separation between competing athletes by gender at the Olympics. Ladies, you can forget about medals in almost all major sports. This is something I've heard so many times now. The media thinks, and a lot of people think, that trans women have a huge advantage against women who were born female because they have more strength or more muscle mass. The truth is that hormones, estrogen, taking testosterone blockers and all those things that HRT does for trans women, reduces that muscle mass. And their physiology after a certain time on hormones is actually much closer to that of someone who was born female. The same thing goes for trans men the other way. So, anyway, obviously I'm very passionate about this. I would like to see the media portray trans people in a more realistic way, and take more time to try and understand what they go through on a day-to-day basis. So that's what this video is about. Alright, thanks.